What's up, guys? Welcome to Modern Music Expo, the online expo for the 21st century music creator. Today, we're diving into the world of music business with the aptly named Music Business Panel. I have three really amazing executives here today who are going to be sharing their perspective on the business side of things. Now, I think this is a really helpful panel to attend for those that are aspiring to be on the creative side, like producers, writers, artists, and also aspiring executives as well, because we're going to be taking a look at both aspects. They're going to be speaking out on topics like how to get noticed by an executive like them, how to get your music to a spot that it is really truly commercial and can work in that world, and also how to become a music executive. What are some of the steps that you can take to go down that road? So I have Henry Bishop with me here today, who is a publisher at BMG, which is, for those of you guys that don't know, a really giant publishing company with over 3,000 writers signed to them. I actually was signed to them for 7 years. And yeah, I can attest that they're a really, really big company with a lot of capabilities. So Henry's going to be speaking out from that perspective. Now, we also have Alice Dabell, who is a publisher at Happy Home Music, who used to also work for 10 Music, and she's also a manager. So Alice has a very wide perspective on the business side of things, and I'm so excited to have her here today. And lastly, we have Alyssa Radziwon, who is a manager at This Is Noise Management. She manages artists as well as producers and writers. And Alyssa actually was one of my first managers back when she first was starting out here in LA as a manager, and I was pretty brand new here as well. So this should be a really, really fun hang. We all know each other really well, and I think there's been a lot of really great information shared in this panel. So without further ado, let's just get straight to it. All right, you guys, welcome to Modern Music Expo. I'm here with a really, really wonderful group of people who are all on the business side. They're all my friends. I've known them all for years. So I already did my little spiel intro. Anyway, so without further ado, I just want to hop right in, start talking about different things that you guys are also curious about. I had a lot of questions for this panel specifically. So I think this will be super informative and hopefully helpful for you guys. So yeah, without further ado, let's just hop in. I guess we'll go maybe counterclockwise, like as we are on the screen, Alyssa, Alice, and Henry. So my first question for you guys is kind of general. Where do you currently work? How did you get started in the music business? Just the basics, really.
I'll start because it seems like that's sort of the pattern we're going with. I work at This Is Noise Management now. It's a management company, and we also have a publishing division. I've been singing, playing instruments for a really long time, since I was little, and always loved music. I went to Berklee College of Music, and after that I moved out to LA. Spent some time working at DreamWorks. And then after that, I worked at a couple different management companies before landing at This Is Noise.
And this is how we met. Alyssa used to be my manager at one of those other management companies. She's amazing. So organized, so on top of it. And also I think you're so passionate about music, which is so exciting, for artists to like relate to. So
totally. I mean, having started from, I think, a really young age, and just like, and I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later on, but I think the main thing is like, you just have to really want this so much. And I think having passion behind it really helps drive you forward. And it's really kind of because of the amount of times people say, I think, no to you. It's important that you have at least like a little spark in your heart still sort of like moving you along. So yeah, passion definitely drives it for sure.
I love that. I want to jump right into that because you already hit on something that I think is really interesting, that people say no to those on the business side. I don't think artists and like producers realize how much you guys also get rejected.
I feel like, yes, there's a lot of rejection. For sure.
I think this will be like very interesting to touch on because you guys are viewed as gatekeepers, but a lot of the times you're also kept out of certain gates you want to go into. So I want to go into all of that, but let's kind of finish out the question. So Alice, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hi, I work for a new company called Happy Home Music, but we used to be a company called 10 Music Group, which is a Swedish company. And Happy Home is basically the US arm of that company. We do management, records, and publishing. And I got my start kind of out of high school in the UK. I got an internship at Sony Music. And yeah, started in marketing, went into A&R. Now I make TikToks.
Is that for real? Do you make TikToks as yourself?
No, 50% of my day is probably making TikToks for the roster, but yes, I have gone viral myself.
Wait, I want to hear all about it. I know nothing. I feel like we all haven't caught up after COVID.
No, nobody needs to know about my viral TikTok. It was a yep.
Okay.
The link will be on the site.
Cool. I won't push, but like we are all curious. So let us know if you're comfortable sharing.
Let's see how we get on.
Nice. Okay, Henry.
Yeah, I work at BMG. I've been here just over 3 years now. Before BMG, I worked for Tim and Danny, who had a management company and a publishing company and a label. And before that, I was Steve Aoki's tour manager's assistant, and I worked on a tour bus. And before that, just like Alyssa, I was at Berkeley for 2 years, as a number of people in the music business and not music business are. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, I just want to jump straight into like the more saucy, juicy questions. I guess tell us a little bit more about your job. What are some of the favorite things? And I also want to hear about the challenges, because I think the goal of this panel, at least for me, is to kind of bridge the gap a little bit, because, even just for me, even though I've been doing this forever, I'm like 1,000 years old at this point, but I kind of feel like even now at this point, sometimes there's a bit of I don't really know what you guys do day to day, like what your day looks like. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the things that piss you off? What are some of the things you love? So I kind of want to hear about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the greatest parts of our job is being able to hear music first. I think whenever one of our clients has a great day, they're sending you the day of demo, and then who knows, within a year that could be out into the public and people are hearing it. But I think it's really special that we get to hear it first and be kind of, one of maybe 5 people that are able to have their ears on it. I think that that's definitely one of my favorite parts. I think finding a home for that song feels really rewarding, because like I said before, we hear no all the time, which is probably one of the most challenging parts of this job. And as much as I think we're relaying no to our clients, we're also hearing the no. So it feels just as unfortunate when we hear it. And I'm sure it is when our clients hear it. But I think, when you do find a home and the right home and a song really starts to have a life of its own, that's what feels, that's what I think keeps propelling you forward through all of the no's.
Yeah, I mean, I know the answer to this question, but just for the viewers, do you have songs that you just wish would get cut so bad and they still are for some reason not cut?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be those. There's always going to be songs on the hard drive. But I think at the end of the day, a big part of our job is weighing out whether they should stay on the hard drive or like just give it to maybe a home that isn't the ideal home. Say someone really wants a song to go to someone, but it's like, that's just not realistic at this time. Maybe we should give it to a younger artist and they could start their career with this song. Because I think a song living on a hard drive is not going to really do anything, but a song with a smaller artist could propel that artist forward.
Yeah, I think this is also a lot of people that are viewing this are not going to know this kind of struggle of, just because a song is good, like does not mean somebody's going to want it. That's a really, really big artist. I think a lot of people don't realize that. They think like, oh, well, it's amazing, like everybody's going to want it. And it's like, well, no, because there's so much politics behind it of who wrote it and what the situation is, again, politically. So I think a lot of young writers don't realize that, and it's very shocking and really upsetting, I think, in the beginning. Yeah. So I think you guys, help bridge that gap and help educate your writers about like, hey, like this is kind of how it is, let's strap in. So anyway, Alice, I would love to hear about your favorite things and your challenges as well.
Yeah, it's interesting mentioning, the songs on the hard drive and kind of, taking the initiative to go, okay, Rihanna isn't going to take that one. How can we make something happen out of this in another way and maybe create our own home with it? And that's kind of what I got more into, at least over the last year. I was always more of an A&R person and a publisher. And our company turned into a startup basically during COVID. And everyone on our roster, we have writers and producers, but a lot of them are young, independent, developing artists. And just kind of trying to make something out of nothing was kind of a new challenge. And a lot of what I do is development work and is creating something from nothing. It is making a lot of content, and it is really kind of, getting people to care about something that nobody, that no one cares about. And, it is that feeling of, oh, that song is so good. How do I take my passion for this song and get other people to care about it? How do I create a story around this song, with content, with TikToks, with the artwork, and just the general rollout of the release, so that everyone else can feel the way I feel about that. And we have had a lot of moments over the last year where we've been able to do that, and that's really cool. You feel a certain way about a song. Maybe you've got a note from someone else, maybe you've already pitched that song to someone, but you made it happen yourself because you marketed it in the right way and told the story of that song. Because at the end of the day, all of those songs on the hard drives are great, they are amazing. So there's just so many of them, but if you can connect the dots and get people to understand the context, then it can work.
That makes sense. Does it ever happen where you just have one that you just keep pushing? Like you just care so much about this one song that you just won't give up until something happens with it?
Yeah. I'm sure we all have that song like in our mind right now.
Yeah.
It's just a question of when. And it's not also necessarily like giving up on the song. As Alyssa said, you could give it to a new artist, and as long as the moment around the release is right, it can still be huge. But yeah, there's definitely those songs that you try and also present those new artists as an idea, and everyone's like, no way. So,
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a lot of it too, to that point, is managing expectations. That's a huge part of our job. And just being honest with our writers and producers of just this realistically is not going to make it to Ariana Grande, but I think it could be great for this other artist. I think you need to be realistic with your goals here, and everything is just a building block process. Like people at the beginning of their career, especially developing writers and producers, they just need cuts. Like they just need songs to come out. They need songs to not be sitting on a hard drive. The world needs to hear them. People need to know what they can write. And a way to do that is to give a song to maybe an artist that isn't the ideal artist, but could have a life of its own with that newer artist.
That makes so much sense. Henry, I would love to hear from you on this topic.
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of it, specifically comes from a general intention from an executive perspective. And, and for me, that's always been, you can really make the world a better place through getting music out there that people love and makes their lives better. So kind of directing what you do to be able to do that as much as possible and for as many people as possible. And, sacrificing your own personal taste or needs if needed too, just to be able to hopefully, provide that to everyone that you work for. And from a creative perspective, beyond intention, I think one of the ways that, people who came from a musical background, like myself and Alyssa, and I imagine Alice too, to a certain extent, we can kind of implement that creativity from a deal making and structural front. And that's one of the things we really, try to do to push our firm forward as BMG. And, in doing so, the effect of that is, it really is an artist-driven business. And to, elevate artists to the next level through great songs, great productions, great marketing strategies, and also great deals. So I hope that answered as much as the question as possible, and feel free to let me know if I missed anything.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think it is really interesting for me how you guys have so much creativity on your end as far as, choosing the songs that you love, the ones that you really want to push, but then also there's such a psychological aspect to it as well, as far as, managing the expectations of your clients, like you said, Alyssa, and like making sure your writers are happy. Really, I kind of want to jump into that a little bit, because I think this is such a kind of interesting thing that I think a lot of aspiring people wouldn't really realize. I think there's a little bit of like, we all have the same goals, right? But it can feel like there's sometimes like a little bit of a push and pull between people on the business side and the creators, producers, writers, artists. I'm kind of curious, like, if there's anything you guys would want to impart to artists, anything that you would want them to do a little bit differently to maybe make your relationship with them easier, maybe make things go a little smoother, better.
I mean, one thing I'll say just on that last note that we were just talking about, to wrap it up quickly, that I feel like is really important, is just, and maybe also kind of part of this question as well, is just that there's only so many chances you get with A&Rs, label A&Rs. And so I feel like as a manager, it's important for me to be really honest with my clients, to be like, I don't think this is our shot. Like, I don't think this is the song that we need to pitch for this artist, because like there will be a better one that comes down the line. And that's when we really need to take our shot with this A&R. So I think just that is a really important thing to note, because I think when you explain that to newer developing writers, it's hard to understand, but the longer you're in the industry, you understand, like, you can't send someone a song every day. You have to just really pick and choose. But in terms of like, I don't know, anything for artists to understand our side of the business, I think a big thing is like just trust. I think we have this conversation a lot with our clients, and a lot of it is just, they have to trust we're doing our job, and we have to trust that they're doing their job. When they walk into the room, I'm hoping they're putting their best foot forward, they're being creative, they're in a good headspace, they're making the artist feel good. And I hope that they know that when I receive the song on the other side of that I'm listening to the song, putting a list of pitch ideas together and pitching it to like some of the right people. And trust, to me, I think, is one of the most important things. And I think, for my clients in particular, like giving them the leeway to kind of work on artist projects that might be more like a passion project, and then artist projects that are going to like really bring them in income. Those are, I think, like kind of the two things that I would say.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think definitely there's a lot of misunderstanding of the commercial side on the artist side, because I think ideally everybody just wants to do like exact kind of music that they want all the time. And that's not always how it works. Sometimes certain opportunities are things that you wouldn't have chosen for yourself, but it ends up being really great. So you have to be open.
Yeah.
Alice?
On that point of being open, I don't expect artists to change or even remotely understand where I'm coming from a lot of the time, because otherwise they wouldn't be artists. So it's totally fine. However, like, we all have to remember the majority of the world's artists are broke, and our job is obviously to try and give them a comfortable living income and ultimately make them successful. And obviously, being open and compromising to suggestions, and you're not always going to get things your way if you truly want to be successful. Obviously, you should never compromise your happiness, and you should never feel like you're being controlled or that you have no say in your project. But it does take a bit of compromise, and sometimes you have to let those pieces of yourself go for a second to get, that level of success. I always have so many artists coming to me and saying, how did they make it? Why is that song successful? I sing better than them. I write better than them. Well, they did that thing that you didn't want to do. You told me you wouldn't do that. They went and did it instead. That comes up a lot, and just, reminding yourself, this is a career. This is a business. But again,
yeah,
I expect artists to understand that fully.
It is so interesting. It is so interesting too, because I think there's certain, I wouldn't say necessarily artists, but a lot of writers and producers can be actually very methodical and very like, I'm here for the bag, I'm here for the bag, I'm here for the bag. And sometimes they actually lose the other side of it, which is like the spark of like really true creativity. So I think it's somewhere in the middle, probably. You know, sometimes you do have to stand your ground and be like, no, like I want to do this. You like know in your heart. And sometimes it's like, let it go. You know, just really depends on the situation. So, but Henry, I'm really curious to hear from you too.
Yeah, I always thought the most powerful music had a message behind it. And I'll often challenge songs or artists and say, why are you doing this? So, and I think, one of the best reasons is to, align artists and also businesses behind people who have something to say, for lack of a better word. And I think, having something to say is a very important thing, especially as someone who's in a very song driven world. So if anything, my biggest, I wouldn't call it a gripe in any way, but my biggest motivation, hopefully, to artists is, hey, I'm not too concerned with what you have to say, but please have something great to say about this, or about something. And if you have something to say and a message that needs to be heard, and in order to hopefully move the needle, that would be really great for all of us, on a number of levels. So I think doing things intentionally and for a reason, rather than just like, hey, I wrote this song, and be like, well, why did you write that song? So, and I think being able to like have a good reason for that, will not just give the artist success, but I think, artists have to be selfless too, and though it's our job to protect them and financially insure them in as many ways possible, they also decided that they want to be, the people at the forefront of our society delivering messages. And that may come with, you might have to trade your happiness for that, to be honest. And some of the most successful artists who have the most powerful messages end up the least happy. But I think the fact that they do have something to say is, a great reason to continue doing what they're doing. So hope to continue having a number of wonderful artists and songwriters in my world that have a lot to say.
I totally hear that. I think it is always so exciting to just feel kind of the truth behind a song. Because I talk about this all the time. Like, I'm in my 30s, a lot of kitty boo boo baba songs. I'm just like, what is it? I don't care. Like, you and your boyfriend, like, can go sing somewhere else. Like, I don't want to listen to this. But every once in a while, I hear something and I'm like, ooh, hello, you got something to say? Okay, talk to me. Like, it's really interesting. Like, I think somebody who has a perspective, really, it is pretty rare. So I love that you brought that up, Henry. This makes me think of something else too, which is, I'm not even sure exactly how to phrase this question, but I guess the question is about the dichotomy of writers versus artists, and especially the writers that are also artists. I'm curious about how you guys support those people, because I think majority of songwriters also aspire to be artists. Not all of them, but a lot do. So how do you guys help them, achieve both goals? How's the time split? I'm just really curious about your process with that.
I think we all kind of got into this industry for a love of music, and generally speaking, I mean, majority of the people that I know at one point were like, I'm going to be an artist. I want to perform. I love playing my instrument. I love doing this thing. And then we all kind of have this moment of, do I have the hustle that it takes and the grind that it takes to be an artist? And I came to that really quickly into college, where I was like, I just don't, this is not for me. Like, I don't want to be in front of people. I kind of want to be someone that's a little bit more on the side. And so I think we all have that sort of like inner something to say. And I think when it comes to our clients and ours in particular, giving them an outlet, kind of what I was saying before, to like do the passion projects that they want to do, just sort of helps feed into the stuff that's going to help pay their bills. So being mindful of like, hey, I think you want to work with this artist that's like newer and developing because you fuck with them and you love them and you really believe in them. Amazing. Let's do a couple days here or a week. And then let's do 2-3 weeks with like an artist that we know that you're super close with and you can make money with. I think just trying to find a balance of that. And if they are doing an artist project, I think you kind of it's tough. You have to let them do those things to be inspired to write other things for other artists. And so giving them the time to be like, okay, maybe 3 days a week you write for your project, 2 days a week you write for pitch, or whatever it may be. You have to give them the space to do that. Otherwise, I think they're going to come back and ultimately resent you a little bit for not giving them the space to do that.
I think you're absolutely right. And as a person who is that, I agree with you. And I would say it goes in seasons of focus, because I will go months without writing anything for myself. Like, and I don't even care, and I don't have an urge to. And then something clicks in my brain. I'm just like, song. Like, you know, and I'm a little bit of an insane person. Like, I'll do a session and then do that. Like, because I need my money and then I need my creativity. Like, I kind of can't like sacrifice anything, but I totally get that. From your end, you have to maybe direct that a little bit, especially for some of the younger writers where they might not have the time management to do it themselves yet. And I think it's very well said. And Alice, I'm curious to hear from you, because I know you work with a lot of incredible young artists and also writers as well.
Yeah, I think it's also asking the writer or artist, you know, what their expectations are for that artist project. You know, is it just an outlet for creativity, or do you want a Grammy? Because if you want a Grammy, we need to focus on the artist project, if we all believe that it's that, you know, special. And I was going to say something else, but I don't quite remember. But yeah, I think if you really want to be an artist, you need to be really sure, because it takes a lot of work. And I think if it's a creative outlet, that's great. And I think, you know, there's so many opportunities now. You know, I feel like so many moments right now with releases aren't always necessarily planned. You know, you can be releasing things and just never, you know, your expectation might not be to get a Grammy or even get a sync on something or whatever. But, you know, these things happen. You can have a TikTok that takes off that you didn't expect. So, so yeah, I'd say if you want to be at the Grammys, you should focus on being an artist. And if you're cool with the creative outlet thing, then that's cool.
Cool. Makes sense.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. One more thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you end up being a successful writer, the DSPs are going to love you and give you incredible editorial support. So, you know, it always often pays as well if you want to pursue being an artist after maybe focusing more on the writer career and getting your cuts there and getting known in the industry. Then once you've had that moment, you know, launch your artist project off the back of that.
That makes sense. Henry?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of my conversations for the first time meeting you know, and when we say writer, we mean writer or artist, but meeting essentially a writer, is it's like, what do you want me to do for you? And I think that's like kind of, and depending on what someone wants done for them, is what we do. And I think, you know, it's really, I think it's becoming increasingly challenging to have one foot in and one foot out on anything in any entertainment business. And that's not just, you know, that can be painting. If, you know, you want to be a graffiti artist versus an oil painter, it's kind of, maybe you should, like, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but if you really want to do one of those things, you should probably do one of those things really well. And I think that kind of transcends into the TV and movie community and over to the music business in a number of ways. And I think, you know, sports is another great way to look at it. There's a lot of, you know, professional athletes who were baseball players who are now football players, is kind of a way I think of that. And it's, you know, at a certain point in time, you have to, if you want to be, you know, if you just want to get by and have a business and, you know, be able to make a living and, you know, put a collar on every day and go to work and write songs, that's achievable. But if you want to be in the, you know, in the upper echelon of our industry and kind of leading the way, I think you, at a certain point, a decision has to be made to commit to something, and to be there to support that, whatever that commitment may be, both financially and creatively, is, you know, where publishers come into play in a big way. And one of the reasons I've really loved my job as a publisher is you're not only able to creatively support that, but you're also able to financially support that, which, you know, comes back to deal making, which is a huge part of what we do. And it's not, just about making a deal. It's about doing something creative with longevity. And we all do our best to make deals that way with that in mind, in order to best nurture the people we work with, and everyone else surrounding them.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing. I just to piggyback on that, I couldn't agree more. I think we've all probably experienced this before, but like you can have it all, just not all at once. Like if you want to be an artist, I think you have to put you have to put a lot of effort into that. And I think that if you're starting as a songwriter and moving into an artist, like I think doing the one thing really well is only going to help you focus in the future, and doing that other thing really well. Kind of what I was referring to before is we do have some writers on our roster who don't necessarily want to be artists, but they definitely want to work with certain artists as like they're passionate about those. And then they know that there are other artists that need to help pay the bills. So that's a little bit what I was talking about before, but I do genuinely believe that what both Alice and Henry said is so true. Like you do have to pick a lane and stick to it for a second and get really great at that thing. And then I think you can move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I think it's definitely about seasons of focus. As a person that literally does so many things, and I wouldn't say has a hard time picking, but just like is equally passionate about many different things. I've learned to like really focus on one or two things at a time, and really, not try to spread myself too thin. I'm still a polymath. Like I'm still going to do more than one thing at any given point, but like really focusing on like the main thing, whatever it is that is at that moment is what I'm going to do. That's like my advice to those who are multi-passionate and really, really lean in many different directions. But yeah, if you're a little bit more of a focused person, that is probably a little bit easier, because then you can just, do one thing for a while. And if at some point your passions change, cool.
Yeah.
And then you can sell wine one day, like Dave Matthews. Yeah.
Or have an avocado farm, like who was it, Jason Mraz?
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I had an audience question, which is, you guys probably would anticipate this question. This is very, very basic. I think every person that's just starting out wants to know that. I think it is definitely can be tough for people on the creative side that are just starting out to get through to people like you. And I'll give you guys a little anecdote. This is like blown my mind. So as probably most of you know, I literally just like finished writing a book. I wrote a book. This was like my thing that I wanted to do for a long time. I wrote it, I worked with an editor, I finished it, and now I'm pitching it to agents, which agents are kind of an equivalent of a manager in the music industry, right? What shocked me the most was that every agency I was interested in had an official querying process. It's allowed for me or literally anybody else that wrote a book to submit it officially to this agent. There's rules about like how many pages you send and all this stuff, but like if you follow them, they will look at it. There's no guarantees they'll write back. There's no guarantees they'll like want you or anything, but they will absolutely look at it, which to me was like a shocker and a half, because I know certain A&Rs that I know personally that still will not look at my email with the song that they asked for. So yeah, I'm really, everything is a little bit not too linear in our industry. So I am really curious to hear kind of examples of ways that newer creators have gotten through to you guys, just ways that they really caught your attention.
Yeah. I think a couple of things that come to mind with this is, please, if you are reaching out, keep your message short, keep it sweet, and always include a link. A lot of times people will send me music and say, or they'll send me an email and say, hey, I'm a so-and-so songwriter, and can I send you music? Just send me your music. Like, I think that that's something that I'm always telling people. It's like, if you want a job, you're going to send someone an email and be like, hey, here, I would love this job. Like, here's my resume. And your music is your resume. So if you ever are going to send an email, keep it short and send a link always in the first email. I think keep it to like your best 3 songs. If you're, that to me, I'm just like, cut it down to 3, maybe 5. And I am always flattered when people reach out. anytime someone emails me, anytime someone DMs me, anytime they hit me on LinkedIn, whatever it might be, I'm always like, you took the time to find me. You took the time to find my email, you whatever, all of those things. And you found me. And now I want to respect you and listen to your music. And just like you were saying before, like, I don't always write back. I mean, I try my best to get back to everyone, but sometimes I'm just like, this isn't for me. This isn't the right thing. I don't want to write back to that person because I know that it's not the right thing for me at that time, but I am always flattered when people DM me. And I think the other thing that we are always talking about in the company that's so important is for like the person who is reaching out to have realistic goals. If you reach out to me and say like, hey, I'm a new songwriter, like, can I work with Ian Kirkpatrick? My answer is going to be no. And it's just like to come into it being like, hey, I want to be a songwriter. Can I work with like one of your developing songwriters on the roster? Cool. Like, yeah, let's figure out a way to make that happen. I think just, again, it's such a building block process and every one session leads to another session. So I think coming into it and being as realistic as possible is really helpful.
I think this is a huge point that you made. I like just want to say like to anybody who's starting out that's listening, like you can, if you're good, like you can get a chance to work with like the big people or whatever, like just maybe not right away. Like that's definitely not a realistic expectation. Unless you write a list and say, hey, I have $50,000 to pay Ian for the day, she'll probably be cool with that, like unless you're going to throw money at big writers for day rates, then, have the expectation of more like, hey, I want to work with somebody new who's really talented. We can develop together. So anyway, that's my little spiel. Alice, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think part of it is also, just creating your own storm a little bit and gathering a crowd. You don't even necessarily have to traditionally release anything, but you can be creating, content around your music. Even if you're a producer, there's so many producers that I've discovered on TikTok over the last year. It's like when we go to Spotify, when we have a release coming up, here's our song, please put it on a playlist, please. It's like, well, if no one else cares about this, we're not going to care about it. So, you can always email, of course, but as we say, we all know not everyone is like us, not everyone's going to necessarily answer. And there's just, you have an opportunity to get your own fans and get it started yourself. And then we'll be like, oh, there's a number on my computer right here dinging, telling me that you're doing something right. So I'm going to send you an email. So, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Henry?
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of demos. I would honestly say I respond to everyone.
You guys are three of you are very unusual. I got like a good ass group. I'm really happy.
Well, the thing I will say too is, and the reason I do that actually is because I was in those shoes at the beginning of my career, and I was lucky enough to very early on have a timanddanny.com email address, which didn't hurt, and then move into a BMG email address. And I mean, a couple of my clients are people I just blindly reached out to, who I went on and signed. So I think being empathetic and from blindly reaching out to heads of A&R at major labels and having them respond to me, I was like, wow, this is a really successful guy who I'd like to have a similar career to. And he's responding. I'm like, well, I better respond. I maybe one of the reasons that I would hope to think perhaps I get a response. I don't send more than one song. I don't write more than one line with it. And they usually say, hey, I like it, let's talk, or not for me for now. So it's, I think that's definitely, if you're going to be sending a demo, please just send one or two songs, who's ever out there. I think it's tough to get more than one or two songs, and to pick your best songs. And I think that goes from not just demos, but like all the way to like, even if like it's like the biggest, most priority artist on your, or producer, it could be, Metro Boomin. He's very respectful of his music, and you're not going to get 30 beats in a pack. you're going to get like one or two very specific things for a purpose. And I think going back to intention with writing music, and what message you're writing the music, that same message should transcend into your day-to-day activities and sharing your music too. So the same thing that you have to say about it, it's best if you implement that sort of creative integrity in your outreach of music, and don't be shy, but at the same time, treat it with the respect that you wrote it, and know what you've got.
I think that's great advice. I love this. I think so many amazing things are being said. I want to transition a little bit just to talk about and cater towards those who are aspiring to be on your guys' end of things, because I feel like we've talked a lot about artists and songwriters. So I have had an audience question who aspires to be on the business side, and they're wondering how you decide to work with a certain artist or writer. Like, is it mostly like a gut feeling, like what you said, Henry, where you like, oh, I just really want to work with this person, I'm going to cold email them? Do you rely on metrics like you mentioned, Alice, with like certain numbers on Spotify? Is it kind of a combination of both?
There are usually three things that I look for in a client when I'm taking someone on, and hopefully I'm answering this correctly. There's three things: vision, ambition, and talent. I think someone really has to have an idea of where the fuck they want to go. Like, if you don't know where you want to go, I can't help you get there. And I think that that's a big part of my job as a manager. Ambition, you have to want this more than you want anything else in your life. You have to want it more than you want a partner, more than you want a house, more than you want anything. Like, you have to want it so much. Even on the business side, as a manager, like, I remember when I was starting out, I basically paid to have a job in management. I feel like I worked so many jobs outside of management just to have a day-to-day manager job. And that was just because I wanted it so badly and nothing was going to get in my way. And I think the third thing is talent. Like, there has to be something there, whether it's you're a really talented lyricist, you're really talented at melodies, you're a really talented instrumentalist, you have an insane voice. Like, all three of those things are things that I'm looking for before I'm going to take on a client.
That's very concise. I love that. Alice?
Yeah, I have to agree, especially, talent, of course, but the vision and ambition part is just so incredibly important. There have been times where I've felt like, damn, am I more passionate about this?
Yeah.
And that isn't a great thing. And also just someone who's doing something a little bit differently. I feel like everyone that I've come across, it's always been gut feeling. It's never been metrics. And I've just always noticed something different. Oh, this could stand out because of this. Yeah, that's super important.
Awesome. Henry?
Yeah, I've been really lucky throughout a lot of my career, and I've been lucky enough to be able just to pick music I love and go sign it. And that's been my kind of bottom line is, do I absolutely love and need this music? And is it something I would just listen to when I'm sitting in the car driving with one of my friends somewhere? So I think, based on that, and if it really like kicks me into action to like physically like be in the room with the person who made that music as soon as possible, I'll deal with someone if they're difficult or if they want a lot of money or like whatever it is, I can work out. But if I absolutely love your music, that's kind of my biggest, that's a starting point for working with someone. And not just me, but I feel like, oh, the world needs this music and will be a better place if this music is out there. So and whatever I can do to help push that forward, that's what we're gonna do. Was that okay with the question?
I thought that was great. I mean, you just were like, I need to just fuck with it. Like, I need to love it.
Yeah. And there's also like a lot of deals that make a lot of financial sense that are very achievable deals to do. But it's just like, damn, like, I wish I loved this music because everything else makes so much sense to do. And I know we could make, in publishing specifically, it's net publisher share income. In record, it's net label share. So I know I could make that income for our firm. And also, but it's just like, well, but I'm not trying to make us money. I'm trying to make the artists money. That's why I'm doing this. So I'm not really trying to make people money who's music, and who am I to be to say, but you know, for me, I try to align myself with people who make the music that I think needs to be out there.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, and I guess to kind of expand more on that question too, for younger people who are, you know, maybe going to Berkeley right now, they study music business, they want to be on the business side. What are some of the steps you would recommend that they take so that they, you know, can get their first job in management like you did, Alyssa, so that they can get into this field?
Listen, if you want to be in this industry, you have to want it so much. Like I was saying, you have to have a hustle muscle. There has to be something in you that's just like, I'm not going to quit until I get to where I want to be. There has to be some sense of urgency. I think the people that don't succeed in this industry are just like, oh, I'll get to that when I get to it, or I'll do this at a later time. It's like, no, like the people who are working hard are the people who are going to be successful. And I think like a couple things that are just like an offshoot of that is that there's room for everyone in this industry. Like there's room for everyone who wants to be in it. Whatever genre you want to be in, whatever part you want to play, there's room for everyone. And I think something that's so important that I've learned over the last few years, especially, is like, you don't have to be an asshole to get what you want. You can be nice and you can be successful. And I think a lot of times people look at this industry and they're like, you have to be a bulldog, you have to be this, you have to be that. And I just don't think that that's true. I think if you have hustle, you have a sense of urgency, you want it really badly, and you're willing to work hard, I think you can totally be in this industry.
That's very inspiring. Alice?
Yeah, I think for me, at least in the beginning, part of the struggle was that I needed experience. And, you know, how do you get experience? You need experience to get experience to get experience. And it's like this vicious circle. And I think you just kind of have to start doing it somehow. If your friend can sing, somehow manage them. I started a record label in my school, like whatever you can do, even if it doesn't end up being something amazing, it's just something that you can put on a resume, write in an email. Yeah, just start doing it in any way, shape, or form. And I think, yeah, going off what you just said, Alyssa, really, if you're that passionate about music and you want to work in music that badly, you will get there. And I think in the beginning, it's also about, you know, taking a job, any job you can get. It doesn't have to necessarily be what you think you want to end up doing. And you might not even know what you want to end up doing. It's going to take a couple, you know, places and a couple mentors to help you figure it out. But just get in there, first of all, and meet people and spend the time and, you know, do a good job, and you'll find your way for sure. But yeah, that first step of getting experience is a nightmare, and you just have to somehow create it yourself.
Yeah, I will say too, don't be afraid to take a risk. When I first started, I definitely jumped around a lot. I started at DreamWorks and I was like, I don't want to be, you know, music supervisor. Then I moved over to management, but that wasn't really the right spot for me. And then in moving to a couple of management companies, there was one in particular that I was like, I really want to be at this management company. And I cold reached out to, you know, the person who owned the company. And I was like, can we get coffee? And we got coffee, and he thought I was supposed to be my boss when I showed up. And then it just was me when I showed up, and I was like, hi, like, let's talk. And I was like, I want to work for you. How do I make that happen? And he was like, well, you have to quit your job. Like, I can't talk to you because you're working for a friend of mine. Like, you have to quit your job. And I was like, sick, like, I'll quit on Tuesday. And I quit my job. And I called him back and I was like, yo, I quit my job. Like, let's talk. And he was like, you're out of your mind. You cool, like, okay, like, let's do it. And my family, I just remember them being like, what are you doing? You have no stability here. You're quitting your job, but you don't have a job. And I was like, it's fine. It's going to work out. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. And like, that was one of the greatest risks that I've ever taken. And I'm so happy. I look back on it and I think, I mean, I definitely wouldn't be here if it weren't for me just being like, whatever, what do I have to lose? I'm going to quit. And hopefully this person will hire me. And it worked out. And I would give anyone that advice. Just take the risk.
boss. Boss moves, making moves.
Sorry, Henry. I know you're gonna speak. I just wanted to say that to piggyback on.
Could you remind me of the question one more time?
Yeah, just we're getting a little bit of advice for aspiring people that want to be managers or A&Rs or publishers.
Yeah, I think get out there and do it. I think the first guys, and I think also get into the venues. I think that's like one of the most important thing is be at shows. I think the first band I ever managed, I was just at their show and I was like, hey, can I manage you? And they're like, see what you can do. And I was like, okay. And then I just literally looked up all the record labels I wanted to get them signed to and emailed the album to all the record labels, and that kind of went from there. And I think too, one of the things is if you're an aspiring executive is to align yourself with like-minded creative people. And I was really, really lucky to right when I worked as a tour manager, that's a little bit of a different kind of job than I do now. But when I worked for Tim and Danny, I was like, there's literally this guy Romeo Testa, and he was just singing he was singing demo. He was like getting paid like $500 just to sing a vocal for someone. And I went to like our girlfriends worked at the Malibu restaurant. Like we somehow knew each other and went to high school down the street at the time or whatever. And then I was like, you're great. And then I showed it to the guy I worked for who, let me spend money pretty much at that time. I was like, check this guy out. And then, that's turned into an awesome number of songs that make a lot of people really happy since then, to everyone's credit and to really his credit for making great music. So I think just getting out there and I know it's a weird thing a cliche thing to say, but like not being afraid and just say what you think. And I think you can't really go wrong if you just literally just say what you think. And if they don't like it, sorry. But if you're not saying what you think or trying to hide something, then that's just not gonna work. And I haven't really tried that too much, but I've watched other people try it. So and I think it also goes back to you work for people who make music. So pick people who make music that you care about, and then get close to those people because they need you there. And do your best to push them forward as they push you forward.
Beautifully said. Great. Well, I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time. You guys have been really generous donating this time as it is. I want to kind of finish off with a bang. I would love to hear a story, just something empowering for our viewers, just to kind of end on, of any kind of successes that you guys have had that have just meant a lot to you with an artist or a writer that you've worked with. I'm just really curious to hear something, because I think a lot of the times too, everybody sees like the final product. Oh, this song's really big, or this song did this, but nobody really knows the process behind it. So I guess that's what I'm kind of looking for, is just the story behind it and your guys' involvement in it.
That's such a hard question.
I'm sorry. I know that was not in the questions that I sent you guys beforehand. I just think of these things and I'm like, okay, we're going to do this.
I feel like, there's a couple of stories that come to mind. One, obviously the one I was just saying about sort of like taking risks. Like, had I not done that for myself, like it wouldn't have paid off. I think too, and to piggyback on what we've been talking about this whole time, especially for people aspiring to be in the business, I think your first client and your first pub deal or your first label deal or whatever, like it feels so good because you're like, I finally took this person, plucked them out of the world and just like tried super hard and finally got them something to live off of. And now they're getting paid to do the thing that they love. I think at the very core of things, like that feels really good and it sort of propels you forward. We have a client on our roster who, honestly, at one point in time, kind of, was working really hard in the industry and really wasn't getting anywhere. And so, she moved back to the UK and started waitressing and was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't afford to do this anymore, et cetera, et cetera. This was way back in the day. When Dua Lipa first had New Rules on her, I don't know, maybe her first record. I forget what record it was. I'm assuming that was her first record. But when she had that song, and I just remember as that song started to take off, and Dan, who I work with, tells this story all the time. Like Caroline Aylan, she was literally waitressing, and she was like, I can't afford to do this any longer. And so she started waitressing, and then finally new rules came out and it started doing something and it started moving. But she thought that her career was over, like she couldn't afford to do it anymore. And I think that that's one of the success stories of like, that song came out and it finally did really well, and she was like, cool, like now I can be a songwriter again. And then I'm sure that's just one of a million stories that are out there, but specifically that one, like, you don't know, this industry is so hard, and even someone who is super, super talented, you know, might not feel like they're making the moves forward. And so they sort of take a step back to then have to maybe take a step forward. And I think that that story is super inspiring, because you just kind of never know what's going to happen and where it's going to come from.
That's so inspiring. That is awesome. Great one. Alice?
Yeah, sorry, that's all I can come up with on the
No,
spot.
that's a great one. That's an amazing story. I love it.
Just one that's coming to mind. It's not like a huge success, but it's just something like that I think maybe people on this call should consider. I had an artist who was signed to kind of a major company for like her first EP deal. And you know, there was like $300,000 in marketing money, and you know, all the people who you needed to be excited about it in the industry to be excited about it. And you know, results of a very traditional strategy and way of spending money were just kind of okay. And then she came out of that deal and, you know, kind of like you said, Alyssa, you know, took a second to, you know, figure things out. What do I want and how am I supposed to do this? If I can do it with them, if I can do it with that money, how do I ever do it? And just kind of took the time to reevaluate strategy and how we spend money and how we get people to care about things. And since leaving that label in that situation has just created, like, I think her songs have probably streamed like quadruple more times than they did when she was with the label, and the audience has grown by hundreds of thousands of people. And, you know, learning from mistakes, oh, that didn't work. So when I do it again, even if I do it not spending a dime, I know at least how to get more of a spark than I did with all of those things kind of lined up for me. And, you know, she's on a great path now. And yeah, just, I think sometimes you think you have all the elements for success, and, you know, that in itself can be a curse. And yeah.
No, I think what you just said, it's so important, because I know so many people, or knew back in the day, that would just like wait to release their music for the perfect situation. Like, oh, I don't have a manager, or I just have a manager. I don't have a label. Oh, I don't have like this amount of money to promote it. They just wait and wait and wait, and they kind of don't release their music. They let their music get stale. And a lot of the times those situations don't work out as well as you want them to. And sometimes something just pops off on TikTok, like really randomly. The person didn't even spend any money at all. So yeah, sometimes you just have to kind of go with your gut and do what makes sense, as opposed to just waiting for some perfect situation. Henry?
Sure. Maybe I'll use one of yours and, dare I say, our shared successes.
Yay!
as an example. And you know, you know a little bit more perhaps than I do about how the record came about. But you know, it's I think it really did start with an intention. And I think you and Annalise got into a situation in a studio saying, not only are we going to have fun, we're going to make some music that some people are going to really have some fun listening to. And I really felt that when you guys initiated it, and we did a writing camp for a Korean label, and to write K-pop songs, and you and Annalise wrote Mafia that day, also known as In the Morning now, for some reason, because they made the In the Morning the Korean lyrics.
Yeah, you know, it's because it's the game Mafia, like the card game. So when you wake up in the morning, oh, who's dead? It's related to that. Because at first we were like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we were like, what
wait.
is this lyric?
Wait, so what is Mafia, a card game?
Yeah, do you guys know this game? The game Mafia? You know, everybody, okay, yeah, so I guess it can be done with cards, or it can be done with like just like pulling like a kind of a straw or something, but basically whoever gets like the unusual straw or like a black card as opposed to all red cards is the Mafia. And it's done in a group. Everybody closes their eyes, and then the moderator says, okay, Mafia opens their eyes, and let's say if I'm Mafia, I open it, you know, and I look around and I go, I kill this person, you know, and then the morning comes and the moderator says, okay, John is dead. And then everybody tries to decide who killed John. And, you know, if Mafia survives by the end of everybody being killed off, they win. So that's what it's about. Yeah.
Wait, and you had that in mind when you wrote it originally? That it was about the card game, or that?
No.
I was gonna be like, okay,
No. That's something that they basically added to the lyric, because ours was a little bit simpler, just like, oh, we're like bad girls, we're like girl gang. That's what it was. And they added this much deeper, more interesting meaning. So like, I will not take credit for that. Like they did that, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah. So that was really cool, and how it kind of started off as literally, hey, let's write a K-pop song, and we pitched it, and I was sold it, like I was like, all right, Hook is Mafia for K-pop, that's a great idea. And then we pitched it, and then it landed with ITZY, and it turned into a really successful song. So I was really excited to get to be a part of that with you and Annalise.
We're very excited, and thank you for your help and your contribution. Because
well done, good job.
Without you, we just would have a song on a hard drive. Well, thank you guys so much. This has been honestly so fun. Such great words, you know. Please, like, for those of you that are on the artistic side, you know, please heed the words of like how to contact people, how to go about planning your career, having vision for it. I think those were all incredible points. And those who are aspiring to be on the executive side, you know, don't be afraid to take risks, like everybody said, because as you can see, they can pay off. So anyway, thank you guys so much for being a part of the Modern Music Expo.